So just a little bit about the Ann Arbor Area Community Foundation. Our mission is to enrich the quality of life in our region. We have, because the broad scope of that mission, what we have are strategic initiatives and programs to help fill out what our philanthropic mission is. So we're permanent community capital, so we're an endowed organization, and every year we make grants and scholarships to benefit Washtenaw County and the people in Washtenaw County. We're a small and mighty team. We're 11 people, 17 trustees, and then our work is really powered by over 400 volunteers that help us do both the hard and the exciting work of setting strategy, making decisions, and investing philanthropic capital across Washtenaw County. So specifically our work today that we're speaking on is about arts and culture. And what we believe is that arts and culture forms the connective tissue that make our neighborhoods thrive. What we want to enrich, support, and really connect with our neighbors, our creative spirit, and we believe that this then also supports economic activity, right? As we are in relationship with each other, as we are experiencing our communities with each other, we think that there, in addition to that benefit to the self and that benefit to the neighborhood sort of on a heart level, we also believe that there is then a resulting positive economic activity in our communities as well. And so the Arts and Culture Initiative that In Our Neighborhood is part of is our broader cultural economic development initiative. So this is a grant program of that larger strategic initiative that looks at investing in the arts and culture in order to spur economic activity. This particular grant program is looking at that connective tissue in our neighborhoods through arts and culture. Our Cultural Economic Development Initiative has two main signature areas. The first one is around leading community. And this isn't us leading and everyone following. This is that we want to listen to the voices of community and catalyze that leadership so that we can strengthen the local arts and culture sector. And then we also believe that we can help apply knowledge throughout the community. So there's wisdom, there's insight in all places across the community. And what we want to do is be able to aggregate that and cultivate it and then reinvest that back into community so that there's a reciprocal relationship. So the insight and the wisdom is coming from the people. We can sort of foster it, help make sense of it, and then share it back out for communities to benefit from. The resulting grant program of In Our Neighborhood, which is what our opportunity today actually got its origins in a precursor initiative called In the Neighborhood, and that was started in 2017. In the Neighborhood was a community voice project that was looking at surfacing the ideas, the opportunities, the concerns that community members had about arts and culture. So in previous iterations of understanding where the Community Foundation could best invest its philanthropic dollars, we often went to other institutions, which gave us a great perspective, and we still go to institutions. But what we realized is that we weren't hearing from people, and people are sort of that connective tissue in how all of our communities are working. So we set out on this exploration of In the Neighborhood. We had 6 neighborhoods that we went, that we were invited to and that we worked with. Each neighborhood had what we call 2 community navigators. So those were folks that already had networks that were leaders, if you will, in their neighborhood already, and we worked with them to have them host conversations in their place. It was really important that that these conversations happened in the place and context of communities, and our communities were both geographic as well as identity-based. In addition to the navigators who acted as hosts, we had an artist join of different mediums, but the idea that art was going to be made as part of the conversation. Sometimes making the art was the conversation, but sometimes the artist was also observing, listening, interpreting, and making a piece of art as the conversation was unfolding. And then we had three simple questions that we sort of asked at every one of these gatherings, and those three questions sparked hours of conversation. So we had in the Heidelberg building, we had a conversation with artists. So these were artists in our community sharing about art and culture. We also then asked the following questions. Where does art live? Whose voices need to be heard? And what art needs to be experienced, supported, and discovered? So we asked artists, as the picture showed just before, but we also asked folks in Ypsilanti, we asked folks in Ann Arbor, we asked folks in Chelsea and Manchester, sort of representing more rural or suburban communities. We asked groups of people in the tech entrepreneurship world, because we were really interested in getting a diverse set of perspectives here. We are by no means saying we were wholly representative of everyone in Washtenaw County, but we were looking to expand our network as well as the perspectives and voices that we were hearing. So again, these were the neighborhoods that we worked with, downtown, Depottown, and Ypsilanti, artists themselves, young professionals in tech, entrepreneurs, the Sugar Book community, young artists and culture makers, as well as the suburban Washtenaw, so Dexter, Saline, and Chelsea. I misspoke before and had Manchester. I apologize about that. And so as an example of one of the pieces that came out, this is by the very talented Yana Zaro, did graphic reporting and helped to lift up what was being heard across the conversations. So you can see the questions of, well, what's available, what inspires, questioning access, so who owns it, right? We started to get into, well, what does it mean to own? Is it financial? Is it in the mind? It is in the heart? Is it physical owning? Is it, just a responsibility to and a relationship with? So these were just some of the pieces that came up in the conversation. We also heard that people really value the idea of a neighborhood, right? Sort of of being in close proximity, right? So I think when I think of a neighborhood, what comes to mind is the idea of close proximity. That doesn't have to be physical proximity, right? It can be identity proximity, it could be relationship proximity, but what we heard loud and clear in each of the conversations was that there was value in identifying and describing oneself through a neighborhood. We heard the idea that people wanted to experience art in non-traditional spaces, and so it wasn't that we didn't have enough museums or access to museums. People were actually craving experiencing arts and cultures outside of museums. And by no means am I picking on museums. They're wonderful. But that was one of the types of examples that surfaced. They were looking at how do we have intentional programming that break down economic and class barriers, and that some of those conversations that happened in multiple places really got us here at the Community Foundation thinking about, well, what does a fundamental access to arts and culture look like? What could that be? We don't have the answers yet. We're still discovering all those pieces, but the insights that we heard in these conversations continue to live on until now and through into the future. Just another, this particular conversation used food as art, and so people were building with food as the conversation unfolded, which was really beautiful. And I heard it was very tasty. I wasn't there. I just saw it. The pictures. It looked like a really good time. So what happened after this? So people gave up their time. People gave up their insight and their wisdom, and we wanted to make sure that we were living into that responsibility to do something and be something different than what we were before, so that we were fundamentally changed by what we learned going through this process. So as I mentioned before, our Cultural Economic Development Initiative updated its strategy to have two primary focus areas, which was in our to activate the artistic and cultural identity of all people in Washtenaw County, and to ensure a fundamental level of access to arts and culture for everyone. And that's those are sort of what we distilled out of listening in those conversations. And I should note that it wasn't just Community Foundation staff or our partners at Culture Source doing this. We actually went back out. So we listened, we did some sense making. We worked with Decky Alexander. I should note she was part of from Eastern Michigan University. She was part of creating this whole entire initiative. And so she worked with us to help do some sense making. And then we worked back with the community navigators from each of the 6 to say, like, what did you hear? Here's what we heard. And they helped us refine it even further. And then in fact, we had a final culminating event where we invited everyone who participated to hear what we had come up with, but also as an opportunity to give feedback, which was really exciting. So this wasn't just sort of baked in when we really did try to involve all those that had given up their time and insight all the way through to the end of creating the update for our strategy. And that actually is my handoff now to you, Jane, just to talk a little bit about Culture Source.
So the Ann Arbor Area Community Foundation worked with Culture Source last year, the first year in our neighborhood, which we're going to be talking about in a minute. This is why you're here tonight, to hear about the program itself. And to be a partner, really to figure out what to do with what you learned, what was shared back, what everyone had gotten the wisdom about. And we, in partnering, we were able to listen to and read and find out about the projects that were submitted last year. And we'll talk about those in a little bit. But just a bit about Culture Source itself and why the foundation did reach out to us. We are a member organization and we are regional. So we're the 7 counties in southeastern Michigan, including Washtenaw County. We have about 150 organizational members, and we provide services to the members to amplify what they're doing, to push out their programming, to convene them so that they can know each other, to do capacity building, to connect them with resources, including funding. So all the things that an association or an alliance would do for members, and these are all people or organizations in the nonprofit arts and culture sector, as well as their artists. So as I say, we did have the opportunity to participate last year. And so being the first year of the program, it gave us the opportunity to learn really what the foundation was looking for. And then of course, moving into the second year, into 2019, that's what we're doing here tonight. It was such a big success last year, and there were 30 applications that were submitted, 4 were funded. So it was an exciting program, and now we're going to move ahead. So in our neighborhood is the name of what came out of in the neighborhood. And it again, it's part of the Cultural Economic Development Grant Program. And to the 2018 was the first year of it.
Sorry. I'll also share why we want to partner with Culture Source. Because we want in our neighborhood to be a funding opportunity that is broader than just the nonprofit sector, because we want to encourage communities to apply or artists to apply. We're looking to work with a trusted partner who could help those particular type of applicants navigate a grant program that is largely set up for the nonprofit sector. And so we wanted to have a navigator, if you will, a support network. Certainly Culture Source can also support nonprofits doing this. They're here for everybody, but that was one of the reasons that unlike in our other grant programs, we don't usually have an outside support, but because of the unique opportunity to have individuals or communities that are not formed as a nonprofit to apply, we wanted to also make sure we were providing the right type of technical assistance and support along the way, given the way that the program is largely designed. So I did want to just add that into the context of how we are working together and the goals of that partnership.
And can I add that one way that we do that and in serving the individuals who might be applying or those who are not nonprofits or 501c3s is that we do act for others as fiscal sponsors. And so that is something that can be done if someone does apply who is not one of those organizations. A Culture Source works with individuals and with collectives and those who are not 501c3s and could do so for this too.
Yes, and for our listeners at home or offsite, if you are an individual or a collective or working on behalf of community are not formed as a 501c3, you can still create sort of an organization in the application process, even though we know that it's not connected to a legal entity. It's okay to just come up with that organization name, if you will. But it would also be great for you to reach out proactively to Jane and her colleague Omari before fully submitting, so they can share some tips and some context around needing a fiscal sponsor. So the Community Foundation can make a grant directly to a nonprofit, but we can't make a grant directly to an individual. So you would need a fiscal sponsor to receive that grant on behalf of your project and your community. And so that's where Culture Source can be a support for you. If you're a nonprofit, that is not an applicable route. You can just be a direct grantee of the fund. Okay, so what are we hoping to accomplish in this grant program? We want to make sure that we're hearing from neighborhoods, right? That neighborhoods are geography, identity, affiliation that are working together creatively. So that's how we're thinking about neighborhoods. Neighborhoods is sort of our organizing principle to move away from the word that's coming to mind is sort of like dominant paradigms on how people organize and get sort of more grassroots, localized formations. And so it's not a perfect term. It's definitely a term of art, but that was our intentional choice of the organizing principle of a neighborhood. We want to lift up voices that do not do not currently have sort of a dominant voice in or presence in our cultural narrative. So that's a point that you'll see, I think, reflected in the projects that were selected last time and that we want to carry forward. We want to learn what art needs in order to be discovered, experienced, supported by our neighborhoods. So what I think you'll all be picking up on is that we really want these to be neighborhood based. So when you're thinking about submitting an application, thinking about that place, whether it's geographic or identity, that place in that space is going to be critical. What's also really important, and I want to say it here and it'll be said again, is that for your project, what we are looking for is that you are a member of the neighborhood itself. So what we don't want is sort of, we're not looking in this program for organizations or groups external to a neighborhood to come into a neighborhood and deliver a program. We are really looking for neighborhoods to design, advocate, support programs. Now, of course, working externally from your neighborhood is fine, but then it has to be driven by the neighborhood itself. So then our last piece is around supporting neighborhoods in the spaces in between the places and faces, again, is that connective tissue, right? So if it's also bridging divides inside your neighborhood or with other neighborhoods, or if it's building commonality within your neighborhood or between neighborhoods, that is also something that we are interested in learning about and funding. So our 2018 awardees, just to give you a sense, and Jane, please also jump in because I know you've been working with them pretty closely. We're really excited that we got to select 4 different, very different projects and neighborhoods. Youth Arts Alliance, which is workshops and camps for young cultural leaders transitioning from juvenile justice system as artistic educators for their younger peers. So really empowering young people. Then Yen and Nick Azaro, in partnership with students at Ypsilanti Community Schools, were selected for their Wi-Fi Amplifying Voice with Fidelity sort of citywide happenings program. And it's really interesting. It's very much directed and by the youth themselves, and Yen and Nick really act as facilitators and supporters, but it's the young people sort of driving that piece. Then Untold Stories of Liberation and Love, which is Julie Quarez, Maria Avera, Desiree Simmons, Catalina Rios, and Tanya Reyes came together and created this Women of Color collective. They're just publishing, actually. They're about to launch this month the anthology of Untold Stories. I probably should know the date off the top of my head because I'm so excited I'm going.
It's in November.
It's in November, and then one is Monday, December 2nd. Anyway.
It'll be on your website.
Yeah.
Website.
But really excited about that project. And then Ballet Chelsea for their adaptive dance program, where they're promoting the enjoyment of dance for those with physical, mental, and cognitive disabilities. Jane, you want to share?
And then working primarily with Wi-Fi, Nick and Yen Azaro's program, and Julie Kiro's program, The Untold Stories of Liberation and Love. Those are the 2 that we are most involved with, although we are part of the cohort of all 4. But it is really interesting and exciting to hear back from them after they have one of their events. So when Yen and Nick and all of the youth that are involved in that, and they really do take leadership, and to hear when something has happened and they gathered and they did something, or there was music involved or art making involved, it really was, you can see what a difference it's making. And we went to, they had a celebration, and to see all of those young people, mostly high school students, and hearing their stories, it was really inspiring. Julie's group, they come together in workshop format and write together and do that writing. And it just, again, every time is a full day. I think it probably takes everything out of them to do that art making. And then this anthology is going to be published this fall and celebrated. So I encourage you to be a part of that if there is any way that you can. Yeah. But all 4 of them do, Culture Source has reached out and connected them and tried to be a provider of any information or resources, connect back to the foundation and with others, culture makers in the Washtenaw County community, and really try to activate some of that connectedness that we're pushing for.
Yeah. And so those grants were all 2-year awards. So we're really excited that we'll be getting to continue supporting their work because we know that the first year of new projects are fraught, but also wonderful and fun, but you don't know where they're going to go. So we wanted to make sure that any projects that we were able to support in that first year, that we can also support in the second year. What was really exciting is that the Community Foundation Board increased its resource budget to cultural economic development, which meant that not only could we support our 2018 grantees with another round of funding, but we could also open up the grant program again in 2019 for a new cohort of grantees. So we have $60,000 in this grant program available for funding. We are looking to make 2 to 3 awards ranging anywhere between $20,000 to $30,000 each. And that's just to give you a sense of scope and size. Individuals, nonprofits, and organizations with a nonprofit fiscal sponsor are all eligible. We welcome sort of non-traditional applicants, but we do want to support you, and so we highly recommend that you reach out to Culture Source so that they can support your application. Grant awards will be renewable once for a total of 2 years of investment, so that hopefully that can help with your planning, that even though if you're only, you're thinking 1 year ahead out, you can also know that there's some sustainable funding in that second year. And then we would be really excited, we're very excited last year when we received so many applications, but we would also want to make an explicit request and encouragement to community that we'd love to see applications from individuals and organizations that are led by people of color, women, LGBTQ identified, and people with low incomes. Applicants must be a member of the neighborhood in which their project will take place. Really, really important to us. It's something that, in addition to staff being very cognizant of, our grant decision-making committee for this grant program was very aware of that as well, and it was something that they were highly attuned to. And we also want projects that exist outside the dominant narrative of arts and culture in Washtenaw County.
And if I could just add that projects must take place in Washtenaw County. Mm-hmm. So if the project that you have is a larger one, the grant funds from in our neighborhood would be used to fund the activities that take place in Washtenaw County.
Yeah. Super important. Place is very important to us. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the nitty gritty, the not fun things, but all the things that we want you to know so it can go as smooth as possible around actually submitting the application. So the Community Foundation's online application site is called the Nonprofit Portal. And I'm gonna read through these directions or steps, and then I'm actually gonna walk through it. We want, so you'll need to start at the nonprofit portal. If you do not have an organization profile, then you will need to create one, which is not a problem. My colleague, Zach Smith, who's not here in room with us right now, is our systems administrator, and he is here to help you with any technical questions that you have, including registering your nonprofit or updating contacts for your nonprofit. So if someone else had registered your nonprofit and you're new to the organization, or you're going to be the one taking the lead on submitting the grant, you'd want to make sure that you have a profile associated with your organization. There are character counts for narrative sections, so please pay attention to them. They are visible on the application itself, but we also recommend that you compose your responses outside of the system and then copy paste them into the system. So please just be aware that they're character counts and not word counts. We have learned that this explicitly includes spaces and punctuation. So that's just as you're working on that narrative. The application has not been submitted until you receive a confirmation number with your application number, your confirmation email with your application number. So whoever is the grant contact submitting the application is the person that will receive it. If you do not receive one within 4 to 5 minutes, it should be instantaneous, but sometimes internet connections, you're going to want to call us right away so that we can see what's happening in the system. We can see on the back end sort of as your application progresses, but only if it's been saved. The system will auto-save, but I firmly believe you cannot press the save button more. Like, you can just press it all you want. Just keep pressing the save button as many times as you want. There's never enough times you can press it, and that then helps us see on the back end all the work that you're completing. Friday, November 7th is the sort of last day to do content-related, grant-related conversations. We are here through the deadline to provide technical assistance, but what we found is that on that sort of last day or two, we're unable to provide the technical assistance if we're focusing on the content, and we want to make sure that everyone can get the support they need to hit the submit button by November 12th at 5 p.m. So it's really important. And here's why 5 p.m. The system will actually run until 11:59 p.m., but we won't be here. So if you wait till after 5 p.m. to submit and run into problems, we're not able to support that. So the 5 p.m. deadline is what is the working hours that we're here to support you. If you want to submit after 5 p.m., go ahead, but we are unable to support you if you run into any issues, and will not be able to get an extension unless the system for some reason has shut off. But we really encourage you to submit by 5 p.m. So you can get all the support. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope that you will follow up with questions.